Hey guys, and welcome to Digital Anchor Chart number 2. Our second standard for 5th grade is OA2, which says that we can write simple expressions that record calculations with numbers and interpret numerical expressions without evaluating them. So some words in there we might not be familiar with. An expression is simply something that looks like this. It doesn't necessarily have an equal sign. Partly because we don't need to solve it. We just need to understand what it means. So when it says that we can write simple expressions that record calculations with numbers, that means that we're looking at the words here on this side of the chart, like, for example, the one that says the sum of 3 and 7 divided by 2, and that we understand what those words mean, and we can write it as an expression in number form. It also says that we can interpret numerical expressions like this one right here, 3 and 4, or the sum of 3 and 4 multiplied by 2, and we can take this from number form and put it back into word form. So basically, we need to be able to go back and forth between the two. So we have two I can statements because basically two things we need to do. Number one is that we can interpret numerical expressions. And number two, that we can write numerical expressions for numbers with operation words. So we need to be able to go from words to numbers and back from numbers to words. Now, there is a key here, operation words, that I've added to the bottom of our chart because in order to be able to be successful with this, we need to understand what those operation words are. So I'm going to add these to our anchor chart, and you can reference them later if you need. They will also be in your notes for this week. So operation words. When we are adding, we're going to see many words like sum. That is probably the most common that you're going to see. The sum of something is the answer to an addition problem. So the sum of 3 and 4, for example, right here. You are also going to see increased. So if it says 5 increased by 3, that's going to tell you that you need to add. All right, for subtraction, we're going to often see less than. We're going to say the difference between two numbers. So perhaps the difference between 20 and 15 would be 5 because that is the answer to that subtraction problem. It's the distance between the two numbers. So difference is very important to know and understand that when you see the word difference, that is asking you to subtract. Multiply, the answer to a multiplication problem is the product. So if it says the product of two numbers, you are going to multiply those two numbers. You might also see times, guys, and sometimes it's just going to say multiply. Okay, multiply 3 and 5 and then add 7 to it. Okay, so sometimes it's going to be simple as that, but we need to recognize these other words too when they come up. So the last one is divide. So you might see split into groups or fair share. But most commonly, the answer to a division problem is called the quotient. I've also included some other symbols that you might not be familiar with for multiplication and division. We've talked a little bit about these in our morning meetings, but in case you did not know, you can also show that you're going to multiply using parentheses, and you can show that you want to multiply using this dot. Now, I know you're very familiar with the X. That's what you've seen up until this point. Just know that if you see the parentheses or the dot, that also means to multiply. Same for division. Oftentimes when you're typing in Google Slides or whatever, you may not see an option to insert a traditional division symbol. You can use a fraction bar either vertically or diagonally to show that you're going to divide, because fractions are actually division, and we'll get to that later. But for right now, know that if you see these symbols, that means to divide. So now the basis of this standard is basically just to translate these. So we're going to practice going back and forth between these two numbers, or between these two columns. So this first one says the sum of 3 and 7 divided by 2. Now, because it says the sum of 3 and 7, it doesn't say 7 divided by 2. It doesn't say 3 divided by 2. It says the sum of 3 and 7 divided by 2, which means I need to add those first. So I'm going to put that in parentheses, and then I can divide by 2. Now, you could also see this written as a fraction. So that would look like 3 and 7 divided by 2. So just get used to seeing that and recognize that if you see it as a fraction, that simply means division. 3 and 7, the sum of 3 and 7 divided by 2. And you can actually include the parentheses there if you'd like, but it's not necessary. Okay, down here, we have 3 and 4, and then we're multiplying by 2. Now, when we translate into words, we want to make sure that people know to add first. So I can use the model of the product or of the problem before it to show me how I can do that. So 3 and 4, if I want to add together, I could simply say the sum of 3 and 4. So that's what I'm going to say, the sum and then I can say multiplied by 2. I could also say the product of the sum of 3 and 4 and 2, but that gets a little more complicated. With a problem like this, it's probably simpler to write it this way. And I would make sure that I get into the habit of writing it how I know, like if I'm going to grade it, write it how you know I'm going to understand what you mean. Don't try to use a lot of fancy words and then lose your meaning, okay? So you just want it to be clear that people are supposed to add 3 and 4 and then multiply by 2. So you could actually say add 3 and 4 and then multiply by 2. So just be very specific with your words as to what order it should be done in. Otherwise, you're going to get a different answer. Okay. The difference of 12 and 8. So difference means to subtract, and this one's pretty simple. I'm just going to do 12 minus 8. Now notice on none of these have an answer to them. I've not been asked to answer them. I've simply been asked to translate them. Okay, so that's what I'm doing. All right, for the next one, we have 16 divided by 4, and then we're adding 5 to that. So I'm going to say the quotient of 16 and 4 added to 5, or 5 added to, I'm going to say that sounds a little bit better. 5 added to the quotient of 6 and, oh, hold on. 5 added to the quotient of 16, 16 and 4. Okay, 5 added to the quotient of 16 and 4. Very good. All right, super. Last one. 5 added to the product of 3 and 4. So product means multiply. Product means multiply. It's right here on our chart. And then we want to multiply 3 and 4, and then we want to add 5 to it. So I'm going to do 3. Let me use a dot. Okay, one of our new symbols. 3 times 4, and then plus 5. All right, I hope this helps. Just know that this is what we're going to spend our week doing, is transferring back and forth between words and numbers. Learn these 4 words at the bottom. They are important to your math vocabulary. And I will see you guys later. Bye.